All right, let's dive into a case that's, I think, captivated Scotland for decades now.
Yeah.
The disappearance of 11-year-old Moira Anderson
Mm-hmm.
back in 1957.
A long time ago.
And, I think most people listening are probably familiar with at least the basics
Right.
from the podcast episode that we're looking at today.
Yep.
Small town, there's a blizzard raging. She's running an errand to buy butter,
Yeah.
and
Vanished.
she's gone. Poof. But I think what's so fascinating about this particular case is how the story
Yeah.
in this podcast episode
Yeah.
unravels these connections
Yeah.
to these two men, Alexander Garchaw and James Gallagly.
I know it's a case that just won't let go.
Yeah.
Even after all these years, it just stays with you.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's a primal fear.
Yeah.
We all have this, the vulnerability of a child,
Yeah.
the mystery of the unknown.
Right.
But I think on a deeper level, it forces us to confront some uncomfortable truths about society and law enforcement dealt with these types of cases
Oh, yeah.
back then.
Especially back then.
Yeah.
The 1950s.
1957 Scotland.
Very different.
Different world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's rewind back to February 23rd, 1957.
Okay.
There's a blizzard raging, which just, I think, adds to this sort of unsettling feeling of the whole story.
It does.
And Moira leaves her grandmother's house to get some butter from the co-op.
Right.
And there are a few sightings.
Yeah.
Early on, someone sees her walking,
Mhm.
then boarding a bus, even chatting with a couple passengers.
Right.
And then nothing.
Gone.
Yeah.
Gone. It's like she just stepped off the face of the earth.
Now put yourself in the family's shoes,
Oh.
right? Your daughter vanishes,
Yeah.
and the police are,
I don't even know what word.
I was going to say lackluster.
Yeah, lackluster at best.
At best, right.
Yeah.
They basically are leaning on this runaway theory
Right away.
immediately.
Oh.
Yeah. And I think that was a pattern we see in a lot of missing children's cases.
Especially back then.
Yeah, in that era.
Yeah, like they don't even want to consider.
They don't want to think about it,
Yeah.
that there's something more sinister.
Right. And it's a small town.
Small town, everybody knows everybody.
It's like they can't conceive of this
Mhm.
kind of evil.
Oh, it can't happen here.
Yeah.
That's what they're thinking. It can't happen here.
All right. Yeah.
But it can.
And just weeks after Moira disappears,
Yeah.
her 13-year-old sister, Janet, is sexually assaulted.
Oh my gosh.
And it's that classic. The attacker uses that
Car trouble.
car trouble, yeah?
The old car bonnet trick.
Right. And Janet, she's pretty sharp.
She is.
She manages to jot down the license plate number.
Smart girl.
Now, you would think that'd be like
Huge break.
huge break in the case.
You would think so.
But
This is where we run up against the limitations of the time,
Yeah.
We don't know if they investigated the license plate number. Forensic science was so new then.
Yeah.
And, who knows if they had the resources, the expertise that we take for granted today.
Yeah.
They probably didn't even.
Yeah.
It's,
actually very different then.
It really highlights how much things have changed,
Yeah.
but also how justice can be a product of its time.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so.
So then we have Alexander Garchaw.
Okay.
He's the bus driver.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where it gets
Oh, boy.
really interesting.
Messy.
Yeah, messy. He's Janet and Moira's father.
Oh, wow.
And he's actually out on bail for raping his children's babysitter. When
How's
Moira
that-
vanishes?
You're kidding?
No.
I know, it's crazy.
Unbelievable.
And I think they kind of gloss over this
Yeah.
a little bit in the podcast episode.
Yeah, they do.
But it's huge.
It's huge.
So you have this known sexual predator
Yeah.
living in this community,
Small town.
and he's not even considered a suspect
Not even on their radar.
in his own daughter's disappearance.
Nope.
So was this just a massive oversight,
I mean, it's possible.
or was there something else going on?
Right.
What was going on there?
Yeah. And then we have Alexander's own father, Sonny,
Okay.
who appears to be deeply suspicious of his son.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Alexander had let it slip that Moira had been on his bus that day.
Uh-oh.
And Sonny becomes convinced that his son is guilty.
Wow.
And he starts frantically searching their house
Oh, my goodness.
for any sign of Moira.
That's like
No.
a Greek tragedy right there.
Yeah.
Father, suspect, son.
It's like Shakespearean.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it really is.
But it also kind of underlines this theme
Yeah,
in the case that the people closest to Alexander,
right.
they knew or at least suspected
Yeah.
there was a dark side.
Yeah, and then years later, Alexander's daughter, Sandra,
Okay.
she discovers the truth about her father's past,
Oh, no.
the rape conviction,
Wow.
these fragmented memories that she has
Okay, I
of
see.
her own father's inappropriate behavior.
Yeah. It all starts to click
It just,
into place.
yeah, the puzzle pieces.
Yeah, and she embarks on this journey
Really?
almost as an investigator herself,
Wow.
talking to family members, trying to piece together.
Try to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Wow.
What happened to Moira?
Good for her.
And what she finds is really damning.
Yeah.
The police never formally interviewed Alexander.
What?
They got this anonymous letter
Oh my.
warning Moira's mother about Alexander.
And they did nothing.
Nothing.
Wow.
It's just like all these missed opportunities.
Missed opportunities at best, I would say.
Or worse, right.
Or worse, yeah.
A deliberate cover-up.
It's possible.
Yeah, you really can't rule it out.
No, especially back then.
So were the authorities just incompetent?
Yeah. Were they just totally inept?
Or was there something more insidious?
Or was there something else going on?
Yeah, it's like they didn't want to connect the dots, even though they were staring them right in the face.
Yeah, the docs were all there. They just chose not to.
And Sandra doesn't stop there.
Oh.
She tracks down these retired police officers.
Oh, wow.
But their stories are hazy, contradictory.
Oh, no.
Some remember Alexander,
Yeah.
others don't.
Really?
Was this just time?
I mean, it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Memories fade.
Or was there a deliberate effort to obscure his involvement?
Right. You have to think about that.
Yeah.
Was there a deliberate effort to protect him?
It's almost like the truth itself has become like a ghost.
It's so frustrating
Ow.
when you run into this.
It's like flitting in and out of focus.
You just can't get a grasp on it.
Yeah.
It's so slippery.
And it gets even darker.
Oh, no.
Sandra learns that several of her cousins
Oh,
were
God.
also abused by Alexander.
Oh.
It paints a picture of a man who was allowed to operate.
With impunity?
Yeah.
Just doing whatever he wanted.
Preying on people around him.
Yeah. And getting away with it.
There's this one incident that really stands out where Alexander exposes himself to his young niece, Rebecca, in a garage.
Oh, that's horrible.
It's just horrific.
Just awful.
And sadly, not uncommon
Yeah.
in these types of cases
Sadly, no.
of familial abuse.
Yeah.
And so from what I gather from the source material,
Yeah.
this pattern of abuse that emerges,
Yeah.
along with Sandra's just tireless digging,
Yeah.
it finally prompts a detective, Jim Machuan,
Oh.
to take a closer look at Alexander.
Finally.
Decades after Moira's disappearance.
Decades.
He sits down with Alexander for an interview.
Oh, wow.
And I think this interview is pivotal
Okay.
because Alexander's story is just full of holes.
Yeah.
Especially his claim that he dropped Moira off at a supermarket.
Well, that doesn't sound right.
No.
No.
And it's here that you really see the cracks starting to widen in his
Yeah.
facade.
Yeah.
And the weight of suspicion really starts to shift toward him.
It's all coming together.
Yeah.
It's all coming together.
And you remember, we were talking about Janet's assault.
Yeah.
Years later, she sees a picture of Alexander,
Oh,
and she's just hit with this realization
oh no.
that he was her attacker.
Oh, my gosh.
It's just chilling.
It gives me chills.
Yeah, and it really raises the question, how many other victims are out there
Right.
whose stories have been silenced by fear or shame?
It makes you wonder how many people were hurt by this man.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
It is.
Yeah.
It's just heartbreaking,
Yeah.
To think about Janet carrying that trauma around
Yeah.
for all those years.
Yeah.
Only to discover
Yeah.
it was someone she knew.
Right, someone so close.
Someone in her own family.
Yeah, it's awful.
It is. And it brings us back to the police investigation.
Yeah.
Or really the lack of one.
Right. I mean, so many red flags
I mean,
surround
well,
Alexander.
Yeah.
The man was out on bail for rape.
Yeah, how could they not?
How was he not a suspect
I know.
in his own daughter's disappearance?
It's mind-boggling. It is. Was it just small town? I don't know.
Tunnel vision.
Yeah, tunnel vision. Were they just completely inept?
Or is there something more calculated?
Right. And the source material mentions a possible Freemason connection.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Freemasons.
Both Alexander and a lot of the police officers were members
Of the same lodge.
with the same lodge, yeah.
So are we talking about a potential cover-up?
It's hard to say without more evidence.
Yeah.
But the lack of follow-up on those leads, you know, the inconsistencies,
Right.
it's suspicious.
It is.
It really makes you wonder.
You're like that anonymous letter.
Oh, the anonymous letter, yeah.
Warning Moira's mom about Alexander.
Yeah, and they just ignored it.
Ignored it.
Completely swept it under the rug.
It's a huge piece of the puzzle.
Huge.
That they just disregarded.
It's like they didn't even want to look at it.
I know.
And then there are all those witness accounts.
Oh, right. Like the woman.
Yeah, the woman who saw Moira talking to the bus driver.
Right before she disappeared.
Right, and the teenager who heard a scream.
Oh, yeah, and saw footprints in the snow.
Near Alexander's bus route.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's all very strange.
And what about that farmer?
Oh, the farmer, yeah.
Who saw an empty bus parked near Coperidge that night.
Right. Parked suspiciously.
Suspiciously, yeah.
Very odd.
It's like a trail of breadcrumbs.
Leading right to him.
Leading right to Alexander, but no one...
No one followed it.
Followed it, yeah.
It's like they were deliberately avoiding anything that might implicate him.
It's like they had blinders on.
Yeah, exactly.
And we have to consider, right, the social pressure.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
In a small town, especially back then.
Small town, 1950s.
People didn't want to...
speak out against authority figures.
Especially if they're, like, powerful people.
Yeah, especially people in positions of power, yeah.
Yeah. You're like in the Freemasons.
Exactly.
How many people do you think?
I don't know, but it makes you wonder.
Knew something, suspected something.
And said nothing.
But said nothing, yeah.
Out of fear or loyalty, who knows?
It's awful. And in the meantime, Moira's family...
Oh, just agonized.
They're just in limbo.
Yeah, the not knowing.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
It's got to be just excruciating.
It is.
And so while we're focused on Alexander,
Yeah.
understandably so, there's this other figure that sort of emerges from the shadows.
At that.
James Gallagly.
Okay.
Alexander's colleague, his friend.
Right.
And years later, he's convicted of child sexual abuse.
Okay.
And it turns out he's the one who introduced Alexander to his 13-year-old sister.
No way.
The one that Alexander was convicted of raping.
Oh, my goodness.
It's sickening.
It's just, makes you sick.
Yeah, and it just kind of shows how these networks operate, right?
Yeah, they operate in the shadows.
They're hidden.
Yeah, hidden in plain sight.
Plain sight, yeah.
It's chilling.
It's chilling.
And it makes you wonder, how much more is there?
Right. How much more is going on?
Yeah, that we don't know about.
That we just don't know about.
Were there other victims?
Other perpetrators.
Other perpetrators, yeah. It's scary to think about.
And that brings us to one of the most perplexing parts of this case.
Okay.
The claims about this Untouchables pedophile ring.
The Untouchables.
Okay.
So this is where things get really unsettling.
Right.
This convicted pedophile named Alexander Keel.
Okay.
He claims that James Gallagly confessed to being part of this ring.
Oh, wow.
Which allegedly involved high-ranking officials, notorious criminals.
Oh, my gosh.
It sounds like something out of a movie.
It does.
It sounds almost too crazy to be true.
Almost too fantastical, yeah.
But even if it's a fabrication, it really plays into our fears.
Our deepest fears, yeah.
About the potential for these networks to exist.
And to operate with impunity.
Especially back then. Societal attitudes, right?
Oh, totally different.
Towards sexual abuse.
Yeah, a culture of silence.
Yeah.
Victims were often disbelieved or blamed. It's hard to fathom now.
It is. It's a different world.
So do you think it's possible people knew?
I think it's definitely possible.
Or at least suspected.
Yeah, suspected. But they looked the other way.
They looked the other way.
They didn't want to get involved.
And if these rumors of a Freemason connection...
Oh, yeah, that adds another layer.
Are true.
Yeah, a layer of protection. A sense of invincibility, maybe.
Right, like they're untouchable.
Exactly.
It's a powerful reminder.
It is.
That power dynamics can really affect the pursuit of justice.
Absolutely. They can really obstruct justice.
It's heavy stuff, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it's a lot to process.
This idea that these networks could exist.
And that people in power could be involved.
Yeah, and it makes you think, how do you even begin to fight for justice?
I know, it can feel overwhelming.
When you're up against that.
But cases like Moira's show us why it's so important to keep fighting.
Yeah.
Even decades later.
Yeah.
The truth matters.
It does.
Accountability matters.
And I keep thinking about Moira's family.
I know, it's just unimaginable.
To lose a child like that.
And to have no answers.
And to be met with,
Indifference.
Indifference, obstruction.
Obstruction, yeah. It's just awful.
It's just, I can't even imagine.
It's heartbreaking.
And even with Alexander Gartov being named as the prime suspect.
Officially, in 2014.
There's still no closure, right?
No, not really, because Moira's remains have never been found.
That's the thing that just keeps coming back to me.
It's a tragedy on top of a tragedy.
But we were talking earlier about, 1957, that time period.
Yeah, such a different time.
How much do you think societal attitudes
Oh, I think they played a huge role.
played a role in how this case was handled?
Absolutely. Back then, attitudes towards sexual abuse were just so different.
Yeah.
There was this culture of silence, of shame.
Right?
Victims were often disbelieved, blamed.
It's hard for us to even understand that now.
Oh, no, it's a different world.
So is it possible that people knew,
About Alexander. Oh, I think it's very possible.
or at least suspected?
Suspected, yeah.
Yeah.
But they just looked the other way.
They looked the other way
They didn't want to get involved.
because it was easier.
Easier, yeah. And if there was this Freemason connection,
Right. Right.
that could have added another layer of
Like-
protection.
Like this unspoken code.
Exactly. You don't speak out against one of your own.
It's powerful, right? How these power dynamics
Oh, incredibly powerful.
can really shape the pursuit of justice.
They can completely obstruct justice.
Then and now.
Yeah, sadly, it still happens today.
So what can we learn from all of this?
That's the big question, isn't it?
I mean, this happened over 60 years ago.
It does seem like a long time ago.
But does it hold any relevance for us today?
I think it does, absolutely. It teaches us to be vigilant,
Okay.
to pay attention.
There's those subtle signs
Yeah, the red flags.
of abuse.
And to create a culture where victims feel safe coming forward,
Yeah.
knowing they'll be believed, supported.
And it reminds us, right,
Yeah.
that justice
Even if it's delayed.
is always worth fighting for.
Always.
And Sandra Brown, I mean,
She's an inspiration.
she's a testament to that.
She never gave up.
She never gave up, even when
It seemed impossible.
it seemed impossible. She turned her personal tragedy
Into something positive.
to a force for good. Yeah, with the Moira Anderson Foundation.
Yeah, to help other victims.
It's incredible.
It is. And hopefully someday, Moira's remains will be found
Yeah.
and her family can finally have some peace.
That's what I keep hoping for.
I know, me too.
It's been a long and winding road.
It has. Full of twists and turns.
Unanswered questions.
So many unanswered questions.
But Moira's story deserves to be heard.
Absolutely. And her memory deserves to be honored.
And I think that's what we've tried to do today.
I think so too. And remember, knowledge is power.
Yeah.
The more we understand these issues,
Yeah.
the better equipped we are to prevent them, to support victims.
To advocate for a better world.
Exactly.
And to our listener, if this has brought up anything,
Any difficult emotions, memories,
please know that you're not alone.
there are resources available to help.
Yeah, we've included some links in the show notes.
So please reach out if you need to.
Take care of yourself.
And keep asking those tough questions.
Yeah.
It's how we make a difference.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
On this deep dive, it's been a tough one,
It has, but an important one.
but it reminds us of the importance of truth
Injustice.
and that pursuit, no matter how long it takes.
No matter how long it takes.